This is Dr. Sage. I'm bringing you a discussion tonight. We'll call it Two Kinds of Love. But we're going to talk about a lot of exciting things. So that's the name of the lecture, and we're going to go into all kinds of ranges around that and beyond it. You know, when people are talking about love, writers and lecturers and things like that, when they talk about different kinds of love, they often talk about that in terms of the object of the love, you know. Like they're talking about personal love, or they're talking about love for the family or love for the country, and making distinctions like that. They're also sometimes talking in terms of the source of the love. In Freudian terms, they talk about genital love, and then you've got sometimes even people have talked about intellectual love, and you've got, depending on what the spiritual love, stuff like that. Well, I'm going to give you a way of looking at love, a division into two types, which is quite different. As far as I know, it hasn't been quite defined like this before. In Huna terms, we can call one of these types of love ku-aloha, which means a kind of love which is natural to your subconscious mind, to your subconscious, to your body mind, that we call ku. And the second type of love we can call Lono aloha, which is a kind of love, aloha means love, Lono refers to the conscious or intellectual mind, if you like. And there's a different kind of love. There are two basic, intrinsically different kinds of love that have nothing to do with the source of it and nothing to do with the object of it, really. What is this basic difference? We're going to find that out because it's so important. So many people have both kinds of love. Everybody's got both kinds. And everybody uses both kinds. But so many people think that they are inherently in conflict. But that gets in the way. All right, the one kind of love, we can call it a love of being. Your subconscious mind only knows the present moment. It lives right here in the present. It responds to the present. Subconscious mind does not respond to the past. If you have a memory of the past, as far as your subconscious mind is concerned, that's existing now in this moment. If you have a thought about the future, subconscious reacts as if that's existing in this moment. That's why if you think of something very sad, you feel sad now. If you think of something very frightening that might happen, you get scared now. Subconscious only knows now. But when it loves, its kind of love is a love of now. And some forms that takes are acceptance, tolerance, being happy with people and things as they are. And a lot of spiritual teachers have tried to get this idea across. Not only spiritual teachers, a lot of psychologists and psychoanalysts have tried psychiatrists have tried to get this idea across too. Cope with things the best you can right now, you know, be content, face reality, all that kind of stuff is the way they're doing it. But it's based on a very natural kind of love that you can develop for the way things are. An idea came to me the other day. I was thinking about all of these things, and I was very curious how it came about. I was working with a person who had some ideas about perfection. And as I was just running these through my mind, and suddenly this idea came out of the blue, or out of the clouds, I think. It was a cloudy day that day. And the idea was, everything is perfect until it's compared to something. Everything is just perfect the way it is until it's compared to something else. That's the only time anything becomes imperfect. Now, whether you compare it to a standard that you or someone else has set up, or whether you compare it to, like, yourself. So many people I know will compare themselves to someone else. They see someone else that has something, they're either more skilled or more talented or more fortunate or whatever it might be, and they think less of themselves because somebody else has something different that they consider better. And so they feel themselves imperfect. But only because they've compared. When you don't compare, everything's perfect as it is. It is perfectly what it is. Okay? And when you can get in that kind of a state of loving what is, well, you can feel so happy. You can go into bliss just by being here. But something happens. Something happens. With some people, they get scared. Because they have an idea that if they are happy with what is, they won't want anything else. That being happy with what's here and now means not doing anything else ever, that's fixed then, stuck. But see, then we come into the second kind of love that we all have too. And that's the love of becoming. The love of becoming something more. That's where we have this whole urge toward growth. So we have this whole use of the imagination that we can see things that aren't, better ways of doing things. We can also, if we want to, see worse ways. But we have this, when it's in the positive vein, it's loving, and it's loving to become more than what we are. You can call it better if you like, but it's really more. More skilled, or more talented, or more fortunate, or more healthy, or more successful, or more spiritual, whatever it is. And this is also a very natural part of our being, but it's another part of our mind that's oriented toward that becoming. And so with so many people, they create in themselves a conflict between being and becoming, between those two different kinds of love, thinking that you've got to hate one to love the other. Thinking that if you're going to love the present and in here and now, you've got to hate any idea of change, of movement, of becoming something else. Because that means you don't love what you are. Well, see, that's not true. Or they have the other idea that if you really do, and it is good to love, desiring more success and more this and more that, more growth, but that means you've got to hate what is here and now. Okay? Because if you don't, it's going to hold you back and you're going to be stuck here because you love it so much. The whole problem is that we have these two parts of our mind, our being. We have two kinds of love, and they are not incompatible. We can love both ways, in both styles. You can love what is, and you can love what's to come, or what you want to make happen. You don't have to throw one out. Now that's an important idea to think about, and let that one rattle around in you. Now let's go on from here and bring in this other thing that I've been working with. It's quite related to this, because it deals with a way of working with your subconscious and reaching it directly, more directly than most methods allow you. See, if we want to create change, if we want to become, or even if we just want to be happy, we've got to create some changes in the subconscious mind. Subconscious mind is involved with all of it. With your happiness, with your ability to grow, with everything that you do and are. It's an important part of your mind. And if you want to be more happy, or if you be just happy, if you want to become something, it's important that you put different ideas in the subconscious mind so that it acts and reacts differently. So it doesn't react and act in negative ways, in these habitual or compulsive or obsessive kinds of ways. How can you reach it more directly? Most of us in this field of helping people, whether it's in psychotherapy or hypnotherapy or any of the other kinds of modalities of dealing with people, I think we've all been going about it wrong. We've been using one kind of logic, which is the one we're most used to in our outer world, which is a sequential type of logic that our conscious or intellectual mind is used to. We've been trying to use that to program the subconscious mind. And it doesn't work very well. We get very haphazard results. Because the subconscious mind is logical, but it uses a different kind of logic. It does not use the kind of logic that goes from one step to another step that follows in sequence and logically to another step that follows. That's the Lono kind of thinking. That's that becoming kind of thinking that works in sequential time and sequential logic. That whole part of our mind loves that way and thinks that way. The subconscious mind only exists now. Its quality is being. So how does it think? It thinks by association, not in sequence. It thinks by association of ideas. If you have an idea for the conscious mind, then you've got to make that idea logically justifiable. We come up with all these prepositions in philosophy and stuff like this. Such and such is, and such and such is. These are two facts. Therefore, such and such is. Okay? Nice sequential logic. And it's good in its place. And it's very satisfying to the conscious mind. And the subconscious mind couldn't care less. If it did care, if that did work, all you'd have to do would make a logical proposition like that, and you'd be able to program the subconscious mind instantly. But that's not the kind of logic it uses. It will take a word or an idea and associate it with what? Its main source of information, which is memory. And so it makes memory associations with all kinds of memories that may seem quite scattered and even irrelevant and unorganized to the conscious mind. Like a smell might immediately trigger off a memory, 2, 3, 4, 5 different memories, all kind of at once, happening at once. And the conscious mind usually tries not to pay attention to that stuff because it upsets its kind of sequential logic. You know, there was a system a while back, I haven't seen it in use for a while, where people tried to make use of this associational kind of logic of the subconscious mind in terms of writing notes. And I don't know if any of you experimented with it or are aware of it, but the ordinary way of writing notes, let's say for a class, is you write, you know, you got your heading, and then you got your subheading, and then you've got your indentations of A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, small a, B, C, you know, I, you know, you keep going like that, all in nice, orderly sequence. And it's a very good way to keep notes, actually, you know. It gets your thoughts organized in that you have to present in sequential fashion, and it's great for passing tests in the kind of educational system we have. But the one that was experimented with was you would put a central idea in the middle, and then as ideas came to you, you just left your mind open. Well, you draw a line out here and put another idea, and maybe draw a line out here and another idea over here, and you end up having these clusters of associated ideas coming off of the central one. A good picture of how the subconscious mind operates, but not very usable in terms of the conscious mind ability to organize all of that, put it to use. Good if you're doing straight into intuitional work, but not if you're doing any intellectual work. But it was a good picture difference between the way the two minds operate. Now, this is what I've been working with and getting some exciting results. Since the subconscious mind thinks by association and not by orderly sequence, using a sentence, whether it's a two-word sentence, whether it's a declarative sentence, whether it's an imperative sentence like giving a direction or anything like that to the subconscious mind, it's not interested in. Because that's conscious mind type of thinking. It's orderly and sequential. It makes sense. Subconscious is not interested in that kind of sense. It doesn't think that way. It will give you out the sentences that you run as a pattern, but it's not really interested. Or if it is, if you're trying to program the subconscious mind with straight sentences, logical sentences like that, often the logical sentences get in the way of programming. Because each word in the sentence has its own associations. And so even if you have something as simple as be strong, you have limited the kinds of associations that the subconscious can make, and you may even have created associations that are intrinsically in conflict in the subconscious. Because it may have some associations based on memory and experience with the whole tone of voice and idea of the command be. And a completely different set of associations with the word strong. So what we've been experimenting with what we've been experimenting with that feels so exciting is programming in the way that the subconscious thinks by stating one word and then being aware of the associations that come into mind. And if they're all positive associations, great. You say the word again. Something like, and you don't say like, let's say you're doing success, okay? You don't say success, 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 success. No, that's not the point. You have to give the subconscious time to make associations. So it's like throwing a stone into a pool of water, letting it go down to the bottom and make ripples. Success. You wait, and you get your associations both in physical feeling, perhaps in other words it may trigger off, in images that come up. And you be aware of what that does. The curious thing is, if that's all you do, and you keep focusing on the idea of success and all of these images, you may come up with some negative stuff. But if you keep using the word, just tossing it out there, or tossing it inside, what happens is the negative stuff breaks up. The negative stuff, when you have reactions to a positive word, or even a negative one, this could work. I haven't tried it with negative words yet. But if you have negative reactions to a positive word, and you keep using that positive word, the negative associations, after a while, just by the focus of attention, begin to break up.
In Scientology, that was their main.
Now they use. That's right. Now there are systems like that. They use a way to get at what they call the engrams in that particular situation.
They're repeating a word.
Right.
But then they didn't rely on the subject themselves saying when the negativity broke down.
No, they used the machine.
They could tell when the pattern was broken up of association.
That's right. Now, question. All right, that's a very arbitrary distinction. And that's one that has to be, the difference between negative word and positive word is one that has to be in your own mind. Why would you kill? Well, I'm saying they both will break up. No, the words themselves won't. Any, what you might call negative reactions, any reactions of fear, of doubt, of tension, of stress, of unreasonable anger, those kinds of things that are often get tied in with certain words. Well, I mean go away. You will get a brief reaction from them, and I say brief, that depends on the individual and how strong the associations are. But you will get a reaction that, as you keep using the word, that reaction will gradually get less and less and less until there's no reaction. Could be. Whatever you feel is a positive reaction. You might get some positive images too, not just sensations. It could be physical sensations, emotions, images, maybe even additional words that would come in. Well, what you are, in a way, you're desensitizing. Yeah, right. You're taking off the negative effect of the words. And here negative, I'm clearly meaning that which is uncomfortable. Okay. Now, however, to begin programming, and at what point you do this is up to you, what you do when you're saying the word is you create positive images. Again, positive in your terms. You create positive images. So what happens is that the same word begins to be associated with positive images. So every time the word comes up, the association will be made by your subconscious, and it will be reinforced each time of associating that with something positive. Okay, with a positive effect. Let's say you're using the word strength. So every time you say the word strength and you have an image in your mind of someone real strong, what will happen is every time you use that word, you will get stronger. Because your subconscious mind translates this kind of data into something now. As an example, I've done work with muscle testing, which is a way really of getting, one way of getting to the subconscious mind reactions. And one of the most fascinating aspects of this is when I have somebody hold out the, have them imagine, well, for instance, I did this recently. I had them imagine Woody Allen. And then I tested them on an untested week. And then I had them imagine, I gave them no feedback as to why they were doing this. I had them imagine Arnold Schwarzenegger. And tested their arm and it tested strong. Well, very briefly, what was happening was that the subconscious was reacting to its interpretation of the image, right, without any verbal, logical input whatsoever. It was reacting strictly and solely to its interpretation of the image. Now, what we found is by continually reinforcing, now there we were just using an image, but by reinforcing a word association with a particular kind of image, it doesn't have to be the identical image, but a kind of image, the quality represented by that gets reinforced. Stronger and stronger, reinforced in the individual. And it seems to go right straight through any conscious blocks of any kind. Any conscious ideas. You see, we've often had the idea that a belief is a logical statement of what one accepts as fact. Well, in conscious mind or Lono intellectual terms, that's correct. But you know that you can work with so many people like this. You have beliefs, things that you know are true, that are not manifesting in your life. Well, that's because they're true for one part of your mind, and they're not true for the other part. They're true for that becoming part of your mind, that intellectual, that can hold all kinds of ideas that may just be totally opposite to the way you're really living and acting and feeling. How can we bring those two together? Well, the subconscious mind, its beliefs, again, are not in that orderly sequence of this is an idea. Its beliefs are by association. Now, when you have a particular word or phrase, an idea that you're, let's say a word, the subconscious belief about that is tied into all of the feelings, the immediate feelings, ideas, and images that are stimulated by that word. Now, one thing we're still experimenting with this, one way that we're going to experiment with it, is to see whether we can get more directly and quickly to the root of a person's problem by having them make a statement about the way they feel that produces, or just making a statement that produces some kind of emotional reaction. And then picking it apart, word by word, to see where the real association is that's producing that negative reaction. Let's say a person says, oh, just a simple one, like I can't do it. And they get all tense and fearful and doubtful, and I can't do it. Well, what we're going to do is take the I and see what kind of reactions we get with them, imagery, associations, whatever, with the word I. And take the word can't, take the word do, and take the word it. We may get, I suspect we will, get all different kinds of associations. We may be able to work with those directly then in creating change with the individual so that they no longer have that feeling as an automatic reaction to situations.
Read down the graph.
Well, they'll be sure. But see, what I'm interested in, I'm not interested in what comes out on the graph. Okay? I'm interested in what are the associations the person is making. Okay? What are the ideas and images that are forming in that person's mind in response to that word? That's what a tremendous amount of content is. And actually, I don't even have to know the content as long as the individual does, and decide whether that content is positive or negative, and then I can simply show them how to create positive content in association with the same word or phrase. So anyway, what we're doing here is bringing aside this vital idea of the drastically different kinds of thinking used by the two different parts of the mind, both in the belief area, in the area of beliefs, and in the area of loving, responding, relating to oneself and to the environment. So what I've wanted this to do is just this, give you some new ideas to work with, some things to try out. One thing that we've been doing, which is quite interesting and very good as almost a self-hypnosis or a self-programming procedure, is to sit down and take each letter of the alphabet and give yourself a positive word. Make up a positive word relating to each letter of the alphabet. Now, the beautiful thing that you're doing here is you're involving the conscious mind that loves orderly sequence. And what you're doing with each word then is creating an image, a positive image, to go along with that word. Now, it's up to you whether you want to say something like, oh, assertiveness, make an image. And then go on to boldness, and make an image. Or whether you want to spend some time with assertiveness, and let's say use the word about 4 times and create 4 different images. But you're going to notice, this is the telling thing. When you start to do this, you will notice feelings and changes and sensations in your body that will let you know the subconscious is reacting. And by the nature of the changes and how they feel to you, you'll have an idea of how it's reacting. And that in itself will give you clues then whether to change an image or to alter a word or to reinforce it even stronger, whatever you want to do. But going through the alphabet, picking a positive word for each letter, just kind of dropping it in that pool, you'll find that very, very interesting, very helpful. Okay. With that, we'll say aloha. Aloha.